during the presidency of Andrew Jackson, will return to a two-party system. Jackson and his supporters will take the name Democrats, while his opponents will take the name Whigs. The Democrats believe the federal government should be limited and should be used to eliminate privilege that people seek to gain through their wealth or power. They believe that the federal government should ensure opportunity to regular people. They believe state power should only be checked when it interferes with somebody's economic opportunity. They talked about the honor worker. These are simple farmers and honest businessmen. These are going to be middle class and even poor people. They hated aristocrats. They hated privileged people. And they hated monopolies. They believed that the expansion of the country westward equaled opportunity. The most radical of these were anti-corporation. They were anti-big business. And they got the name Locofocos. Locofoco, by the way, is the name is from a self-lighting lantern, and it has to do with a meeting where these lanterns were used. It's a weird name, but that's what they're called. Whigs believed in expansive federal power, and they wanted to use the federal government to promote industry and business. They said that expansion west would create instability for the United States. They saw the strength of the country in its large businesses and its wealthiest. Today you hear talk about things like job creators and stuff like that. That would be very much in line with Whig talk. Northeastern merchants and industrialists tended to be Whigs, as well as large southern plantation owners, essentially the rich and the powerful, were Whigs. Another issue that comes up during the day is around Freemasonry. Andrew Jackson and Martin Van Buren were Freemasons. Now, Freemasons are nothing more than kind of a civic organization like the Lions or the Rotary Club today. Just a group of guys that get together and have meetings and maybe do charity work and hang out. But they're a very powerful, popular group. In upstate New York, a Mason who's said to be writing a book revealing all the secrets of the Masons disappears. The Whigs will attempt to use this to attack Andrew Jackson and Martin Van Buren, claiming that the Whigs had this guy killed so he didn't tell all their evil, dark secrets. And they accuse them of being a member of a shadowy, undemocratic organization that secretly rules in the name of the elites. And the reason I bring this thing up, this whole anti-Masonry movement, is it goes to show you that this one party that is most associated with the elites and most associated with this kind of backdoor, behind the scenes, rich people controlling it, when they go to attack their opponents, they don't attack them necessarily in this case for being too democratic. They claim that they're not really democratic. They're secretly, their own kind of powerful clique who's trying to control the government. Irish and German Catholics tend to be Democrats. In fact, immigrants tend to be Democrats, particularly if they're not from England or France. Evangelical Protestants tend to be Whigs. The Whigs also believed in an unstoppable progress of humanity in educating immigrants to become more American. The Whigs are very much the party that fears that immigrants are going to come in, bring their own culture, and rewrite America and what it's all about. The Whigs never had one clear leader. They really had three, which is why on the screen here you see Jackson and these three guys on the other side. The guy on the top is Henry Clay, the guy on the bottom is Daniel Webster, and then the third guy in the middle there is John Calhoun. These three guys were kind of the three-headed monster that led the Whigs, and there's a reason for that. They're regional politicians. Clay, of course, is from Kentucky, representing the West. Webster is from the Northeast. He's from Massachusetts, representing that part of the country. And John Calhoun is from South Carolina, and kind of is the Whig leader of the South. Clay believes in internal improvements, that is, using federal money to do things like build roads and do things that will promote industry and business. He runs for president 3 times and never wins. Webster gives passionate speeches about preserving the Union. The Whigs like to accuse the Democrats of trying to break the Union apart. When I say Union, I mean the United States. But Webster had a real problem. He was tied very much to lots of rich donors who he appeared to be doing favors for, people like the Bank of the United States. He also supported fairly extreme tariffs, which makes sense because it's the manufacturers in the Northeast who support these tariffs to begin with. And Daniel Webster had something of a drinking problem. He drank a lot of brandy, and this was well known, and he kind of publicly embarrassed himself a number of times. Calhoun isn't even a Whig. He's really just an anti-Jackson guy. He doesn't really believe in what the other Whigs believe. Him and Jackson have gotten into this fight. But he does kind of team up with them. He supports the U.S. Bank, for example. The Whigs would win a number of smaller races, but they're only going to get 2 presidents, and you're going to see one of those presidents really only last 30 days. So the Whigs, while they are an important party in their time, they don't have a lot of success at the ballot box. In fact, let's take a look real quick at the presidential elections. I mentioned 1832, Jackson being reelected, and this was after the Whigs, although they called themselves at the time National Republicans, get blamed for the bank war. You see Jackson does very well, with Henry Clay winning his home state and a couple of states on the East Coast. In 1836, the Whigs adopt what they call the favored son strategy. And their idea here is to run a Westerner, William Henry Harrison, a Southerner and a Northerner, and try to stop Jackson's vice president by now. Martin Van Buren had started out as Secretary of State but moves to vice president when Calhoun leaves. From winning the election, their goal is to get it thrown into the House of Representatives for the tiebreaker, where Clay, who controls the House, can choose Harrison as president. But it doesn't work. Van Buren wins more than half the vote, as well as more than half the electoral votes. Jackson campaigns for Van Buren. He tells everybody, "This is my guy, vote for him." Jackson is incredibly popular, and so he's able to easily get Van Buren elected.